Hey, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Don Odells Legends. My name is Art Tipaldi, editor of Blues Music Magazine. We are available right now in most Barnes & Nobles, or you can check us out online at bluesmusicstore.com. Our current issue features Ronnie Baker Brooks on the cover. I really recommend you get it and read Ronnie's story. He's newly signed with Alligator Records. Today here at Don Odells Legends, we have a four-time winner. We're back with one of our favorites here at the studio, and that's Doug Deming and the Jewel Tones. Doug, welcome.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us back.
Of course. Well, we always love having you.
Yeah, it's a treat.
4 times. You've been here twice with a harmonica player.
Yes.
Once with a sax player.
Yes.
And now you're with a 3-piece.
Right.
Though your drummer.
Yep. Our drummer Zach plays harmonica as he drums. It's
Right.
a pretty incredible feat.
Okay. Yeah, it
sure
is.
is.
It's something I don't think many people can have seen, but also he's such a professional at it. I think it's amazing.
Right. I mean, the level he does it is pretty incredible. And I mean, when I consider what it would take to do that, and I say what it would take because I can't play either, and he plays them together.
Yeah.
So, pretty wild.
Yeah.
Pretty
So,
wild.
what does that do for you to go from, a band that has 4 separate voices, now you're down to what I consider a trio.
Yeah.
And the trio, in blues is usually a blues rock trio
Sure.
with, driving, ear-splitting guitar, bass, drums just sort of pounding away in the back. Tell me a little bit about the band, the trio, the concept that you come from.
Of course. Well, I come from a little more of an old school program. Just that's just where my heart lies, and with that comes, for lack of better terms, just more nuance, and not the ear-splitting program in general. Although we kick it up a notch occasionally. Again, variety to me is the spice of life. People, in my opinion, musically, people don't really notice the peaks until you give them some valleys.
Okay.
So it's about dynamics for me.
Yeah.
In terms of the trio setting, I really don't think of us as a trio, even though there's just 3 guys up there, because Zach does such a good job on the harmonica while he drums. It really is a 4th piece. But the nice part about that is, again, for me, in my personal musical vision, I play a lot of songs, some songs, that really don't need harmonica, and rather than force harmonica into that song, I don't have to ask a guy to lay out because Zach's already playing drums. So doing the occasional tune without harmonica is just fine. So really, I mean, the frequency and the whole trio versus quartet thing works out perfectly right now. I'm really happy with.
What's
really
it
happy
like being that leader up in front, singing, playing guitar? What are you hearing from the rhythm section behind you that moves you along or takes you?
Everything. The rhythm section is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be absolutely zero, nothing without that. Not only the rhythm section, but a sympathetic rhythm section. That, and by that I mean, again, with the style of blues that we play, it takes guys that really understand that and understand and appreciate what I'm going for to put me in my comfort zone. Right. So there's a lot of fine musicians out there, but I couldn't personally do what I do without guys that know that have studied what I've studied and really, like I said, sympathetic to my personal style. And my guys, I'm just so lucky to have them. And,
How long have you had Andrew in the band?
Andrew and I have been working together for 13-ish years. Okay. He's better at keeping track than I am. Probably.
Yeah. And Zach, as a drummer, when did he come on?
Zach came into the band a little more than 5 years ago.
Okay.
And
2018 maybe?
right around then, just pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And we worked together for about a year, and he was just playing drums. And he'd always played, I mean, he's multi-instrumentalist, so he plays pretty much all the instruments, but has always played harmonica, has always played drums. And during the COVID shutdown was when he really kind of took the time to really work them together. So since then, in fact, I remember debuting that whole program of this version of the band on a live stream from my living room because there were no gigs, and it was still, COVID was still going pretty strong. But he's really blossomed since then, and in fact, the live record we put out recently is his first recorded, first recorded tunes as a member of the band, but as also playing harmonica and drums at the same time.
Well, you just talked about the live record, and you're now you're on the heels of like 3 recordings that sort of came out around the same time
Yes.
of each other. Before that, you had Complicated Mess, which I think was an award-winning CD or award nominee.
Definitely award nominee. Yeah.
This came out in 2017, maybe just before Zach
17 or
Zach
18,
joined.
right?
And,
just
and then last year you came out with two. You came out with Double Down.
Double Down.
And Live at the Groove Now Festival.
Yes, and actually, and then the other record you're holding there, really they all kind of came out right at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's really not fair to say because Double Down and Falling Through the Cracks are both reissues. So they were on a label out of California. Came out in the first one came out in 2002, and the next one came out in 2009, and out of print. And I really just needed a way to get those back on the bandstand and be able to present them, on my shows.
Yeah.
And so I re-released them, and lucky our good friends Nick and Kate Moss.
Right.
And we released them on their Blue Bella label.
Good. Okay.
So I was kind of excited about the first record.
The Double Down.
The Double Down, yeah, because it had been 20 years.
Right.
And I thought, well, great, let's do a big splash and somewhat of a big splash anyway. And do a 20th anniversary re-release. And I actually went through my archives and I found a high definition video cassette tape. Literally tape.
Yeah.
And I remember from 20 years ago, we had the CD release party. We had a bunch of special guests, and it was just a fabulous time.
Right.
But we put a little camcorder in the corner, just turned it on and let it run, forgot about it. Well, I found that tape.
Wow.
And I was able to lift 4 tracks off that tape and add them as bonus tracks to that CD.
Oh, how
so that's
neat.
kind of cool.
That's
so yeah,
very
there's
cool.
actually 4 live cuts.
Yeah.
From 20 years ago,
Oh,
from the
cool.
original CD release party, which is kinda cool. And they feature Greg Fingers Taylor, who we just lost.
Recently passed away,
just recently. So it's kind of special.
Right, and the Groove Now live. The way to see your band is live because you are just so exciting to watch how the band interacts. And this is what I was going to ask you a moment ago. We were talking about blues, but you guys are so much more than a blues band. People's concept of blues. What's the canvas that you and the Jewel Tones?
I see just what you mean. And fortunately or unfortunately, people's concept of blues is changing a lot. Okay, as our demographic ages, and a lot of new people are coming to the blues, and they're only hearing what they're kind of spoon-fed on whatever radio, this or that, and a lot of that is today's very, very modern rock blues. Right. And somebody that loves the traditional thing, I hope that the education of the average new blues fan will go back far enough to realize where it came from. And that's kind of what we try to do is bring a lot of that back and pay homage to the guys that created it. And I really love that. And so what that means to me at the end of the day is blues to me is a mixture of all the traditional American musics, which kind of what it is because it all started with blues. So to me what blues is a mixture of what some people think of blues, swing, a little bit of rockabilly, early 50s rock and roll. This all came about from that same seed, and that's part of what I love about it. And I try to pay tribute to that every night. Really. I'm still chasing that around.
That's right. That's right. It's kind of what I was thinking. Is it's almost you're playing the music that was at the birth of all of the popularity of those musics.
Most definitely.
That the popularity of rock and roll and swing and R&B and more mainstream jazz, that seems to be where your heart and
for sure. And a lot of it was a little bit different regionally. So obviously Chicago blues versus Texas blues versus West Coast blues, Gulf Coast pop, or however they want to call it, swamp pop.
That's swamp pop.
A lot of ways to describe it, and we mix a little bit of all of that. Sometimes we'll go down the Chicago road real hard and play a Muddy Waters tune as authentically as we can. And then sometimes we might mix a little of that West Coast and East Coast and kind of do our own thing with something, but in general we're trying to keep it as traditional and true to form as we can. Of course everyone's got to put your stamp on it. But we I've over the years, and I've been doing this a while now,
I know.
I've been called everything from a throwback to a revivalist, but
to a visionary.
Yeah, I just
called you a visionary.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I just play the music I love, and I'm lucky that somebody wants to hear it occasionally.
Yeah. But for someone who's seen so many of your shows, there's nothing sleepy or old-fashioned about it, because people are dancing, people are tapping their feet. You can see smiles on people's faces. You're playing music that touches a part of your audience.
Back in the day, this was pop music. This was dance music.
That's right.
So and. There's still a few people around that might remember it from then.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's right. Somebody once said to me, the music's got a swing. And I find so much of today's music doesn't have that swing. Whether it's blues or whatever I'm listening to, it's missing the swing part. But you really have locked into having that be part of...
Swing is a very, very... it's a term that you can really have a hard time putting your finger on, because it could be a song that doesn't necessarily be a swing song, but it can have some swing in it. There's just something about that push and pull and soul that you can find swing in a lot of places that you don't think you would. Right.
Yeah. I always find the swing being in the drummer, and it's what that drummer can do to the beat, and that swing beat, I imagine, must push you into places that
for sure.
Not Andrew, but Zach has the ability to sort of control what's going on up there.
It all starts at the drums. There's no doubt about that.
With how long to keep Doug playing, the little accents he gives to tell you what to do.
It's really important for, I think, any musician to really on a bandstand to be just listening hard to everyone else. That's the real key. Is listen, and then once you listen, especially once you have a little rapport with your group of musicians, you listen and then react to each other, and that's where it gets really, to me, entertaining.
Absolutely.
I love to watch that in a group, and to be a part of it. It's magic.
Yeah. What made you decide on a live CD? At the same time you're working on a 20th anniversary CD.
Well, I can tell you this, it wasn't that hard of work to reissue those records, because there was no studio time involved. There was a little bit of remixing, especially the 4 bonus tracks, but it wasn't very taxing in terms of hours in the studio. So that was pretty simple. So, but we were overdue for a record, and I'd been toying with the idea of a live record for a long time. And then our good friend Patrick Kaiser had us out to Basel, Switzerland to do his event, Groove Now. And they do a full recording production of the show, and he likes to embellish groups with extra players here and extra players there that you may or may not already have a rapport with. In fact, he asked me, who do you want? Who can we pull in to make this big? So I was able to get some good friends to come and round the band out a little bit. So Sax Gordon out of Boston, Terry Hank, which a lot of people know from being a California guy, but he really actually is residing on the east coast of Florida now. And originally, it was supposed to be little Charlie Beatty.
That's right.
And unfortunately, Charlie, passed while we were waiting, because, as my friend Patrick Kaiser likes to say, we Swiss are very efficient people. He books it years in advance.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Years in advance.
Didn't you get postponed for a year too?
And
because
we did.
Of COVID.
Yes, we were postponed for a year because of COVID, but it was booked originally like 2.5 to 3 years in advance. And in that time period, unfortunately, Charlie passed. So then it was, well, geez, what are we going to do? Who should we add? And Patrick just put the ball in my court, and I thought, I've worked a little bit on and off with a piano organ player named Bill Hyde, who we both spent a lot of time when I was living in Detroit and coming up. He was pretty renowned guy, and kind of set the bar musically in that city for a number of years, and at least on the blues and jazz scene. And he had moved out to the East Coast in the DC area, and we'd reconnected here and there a little bit, and I thought, wow, that'd be great. If I was going to have a piano player, organ player, on a session like that, I'd want it to be him. And he was able to make it out. So we had this fantastic blues jazz organ player, 2 great horn players, and it was a pretty awesome experience. And like most live records, at least most popular live records that I know of,
Yeah.
you know, are recorded over a number of nights, and you take the best tracks. And
Sure.
we had one night, no rehearsals, roll the tape.
Really?
It was a little intimidating that way.
Yeah.
But
Did you know at that point it was going to be a live recording, or?
well, we knew it was going to be recorded.
Recorded, yeah.
Now, would I have the recording and do something with it? I didn't know. It all depends on how it would turn
Sure,
out. So
yeah.
we were going to get a copy of that and properly recorded so that we could, you know, move on and
Right.
make a project out of it if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And it turned out great.
Wow.
It turned out great.
Yeah, it's a great representation
Yeah.
of you and the band.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
imagine it must sell very well off the bandstand for people who come to see your show.
It does well, as well as CDs sell in
Yeah,
today's
right,
day and
right,
age.
right. Well, speaking of as well as CDs, in this day and age, you're a band who, your schedule in Florida is pretty booked from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, almost every week. You've started to have these little 2-week tours, Midwest, Northeast, West Coast. What are some of the challenges today that you're facing?
Well, I mean, the challenges we're facing are the same challenges that everyone's facing. You know, the world's changing a bit. Live music isn't as popular in general as it was. I mean, kids aren't growing up with it on average.
Yeah.
Some are, and it's wonderful to see the ones that do. But you know, I'm no sociologist, but
Right.
I witness and I see kids come up and they've got their video games and
Yeah.
hyperstimulation. Even the most dynamic of musics can't compete with that kind of stimulation.
Sure.
So things that are as subtle as music being played by real people are just not. I mean, they're not turning the younger people on like you would hope it would.
Yeah.
So there's that,
Right.
and so our audience isn't being regenerated with younger folks. You know, the whole blues world has been dealing with that for years, as we know, and I'm sure that's a topic that's been beaten to death.
Yeah.
But then, you know, economy, gas prices, hotel prices, less gigs to be had, further drives between gigs.
Yeah,
These are real issues for touring groups. And
Do you think being having such a local following and local schedule has helped you survive?
Oh, for sure.
Where you're not on the road looking for where's that club in Western Pennsylvania?
I love to travel, and we travel anywhere from 8 to 12, 15 weeks a year. And some groups only travel, and I think that would be very difficult for me. I mean, my home life, personally, I mean, family first. But you know, I've got gigs at home, and we're in an area that we're fortunate. We're in an area where a lot of people come to vacation by where we are, and we connect with a lot of people there, and they look for us every time they come down. And what I didn't expect, and what's really worked out great for me, is we meet these folks that come down on vacation. We find out, well, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Buffalo, New York. Oh, great, we're going to be in Buffalo on September the 14th or whatever the date is. And we end up seeing a lot of the people that come visit us in the club when we head up.
They bring their local
some
friends.
Exactly. So it's reciprocated that part I didn't expect, and it's a happy surprise. So I'm grateful for that. But you know, I mean, again, being in Florida, it really doesn't make sense for us to travel in the winter and spring months because our state is busting at the seams with people that come to see us. So,
true.
So I try to be there, and then of course festival season. That's the time to travel. So we'll travel summer, fall.
Right.
Not real wild about driving in the ice and snow once I've not had to do it for a number of years. So.
I know. So would you say that, or how would being having Florida as your home turf, if you will, how has that helped the band grow and you?
Well, just an opportunity to play. Just the opportunity to play more often than in that market than some other markets.
Yeah.
You know, I growing up in Detroit was a great market, a great place to learn from wonderful, nurturing musicians, and I could work many nights a week.
Yeah.
I could work almost every night of the week for a good portion of my young life.
Right.
But when the economy started to get really difficult in the 2005, 6, 7 range, it really slowed down.
Yeah,
And hasn't recovered to its
No.
former, nor has Florida really recovered from its former, even from COVID. So everyone's feeling the effects,
Yeah.
but being able to play a little bit more in that environment has helped keep the band together,
Yeah.
keep the band focused,
Yeah.
keep the band working.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, everyone asks, well, how do you keep a band together? And
Yeah.
I think it was maybe Duke Ellington that said the best way to keep a band together is pay them.
Pay them. Yeah.
Pay
Yeah.
them. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
if you got work,
Right.
you know, it makes it
Right.
easier to keep people happy.
Yeah. So what would you say to the 20-year-old? There's a lot of young 20 to, you know, we're talking about the decrease in audience, but there seems to be an increase in young people who are attracted to the blues.
Yeah.
You know, in their 20s, and some of them now 25,
Right.
under 30
Some
certainly.
fantastic young musicians too.
Yeah. What advice would you give them as they're starting out their career in terms of the business or band leader?
You know, the only thing I can really say is just keep at it. You got to be relentless. I mean, nothing will be given. You have to work for every single little thing.
Yeah.
Don't be discouraged. You know, I see some of these young kids are coming up, way more talent than I ever had, and you know what? More power to them. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Well,
Just
you
keep
are
at it. It's baby steps.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm now in my 50s.
Yeah.
Still, you know, I'm hoping for the next baby step.
Yeah,
You know,
you
it's
are
just-
the CEO of Doug Deming Enterprises.
Yes, I
so,
am.
I mean, you don't have a guy out there booking for you.
Right.
You don't have the merch. You're doing it all.
Yep. Driving the car.
The DIY.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that recommended to today's?
I can't necessarily
Yeah. Do
recommend
you
it.
think-
I mean, if you can get the right people behind you to do it, but you know, the right people are hard to find.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of ways to do it.
That's
and
right. Yeah. Yeah.
This was the best way for me. It might not be the best way for them, but test the waters and, you know, again.
Right. And I would imagine today versus when you started, it is a little easier to get out there on your own. What with social media and YouTube
Certainly.
and, you know, all these other ways that you can market yourself.
Most certainly.
You know, where for you, there's 4 or 5 record labels, 4 or 5 booking agents, and you're trying to crack that door to get into those guys.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, and you know, I don't know what the formula is.
No.
If I did, I'd have a nicer bus outside. But
Yeah.
you know, at some point you have to, you know, look inward and say, I know who I am. I know what I've done. I've redefined the meaning of successful musician for myself,
for yourself.
and I've done what I've wanted to do, and so I consider myself successful at it.
Yeah.
Is there more to reach? Sure. You always know. Every goal you achieve just means it's time to set a new goal.
That's right. Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I need to take my own advice and just
Yeah.
be relentless and
Yeah.
don't be discouraged. Don't give up.
That's
Keep
right.
going.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know, Ronnie Baker Brooks told me in the story I just did on him, if I can inspire a young musician to continue to play this music, then I've done my job.
Yeah, that's
And,
pretty awesome.
You know, to the same thing. I mean, you inspire musicians. I see them come up to you at festivals and shows, but you also touch fans too with your music and the openness of your music. Your music invites people in and says, "Come in, and this is a fun place to be."
We sure try. We
Yeah,
sure
you
try.
do.
And when you see the manifestation of that, it's pretty
Yeah,
special.
exactly. Well, good. Thanks, Doug. Always
Thank you.
love talking to you, man.
Thank you, Art.
So once
My
again,
pleasure.
ladies and gentlemen, Art Tipaldi, Don Odells Legends, and we're here today with Doug Deming.